Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition, and today we are going to talk about our voice, finding our voice, and what does our voice support. And this is something that you hear all the time. It's very an overplayed phrase, find your voice, just like the phrase, I'm on a journey. Everyone's on a journey, everyone's trying to find their voice. And we kind of laugh at some of the stuff that you hear over and over and over again. But there's a reason you hear it over and over and over again, because that's what the collectives are doing right now. Huge collectives are trying to find their voice. And if it keeps coming across, that means that might be in the place we're at too. Everything that comes in your field comes in your field for a reason. You are creating the whole thing. So if something comes in and you're like, I had a friend that would do the rule of three. If she saw it 3 times, she knew it was a message for her. I kind of take it as anything that comes in my field as a message. I have to then decide if it's something I want to act on or if it's just something I need to be aware of. This is something I want to do, and that could change. When you live multidimensionally, and a lot of people ask, what does that mean? When we live multidimensionally, we live from different dimensions. We're capable of existing in a lot of different ones at the same time. We can see all of our dimensional existences, and as we continue to go through our ascension, we just see more and more and more and more. And we're also able to anchor in different ones. We're in the body for certain ones, and some we're just hitting with our consciousness for now. We're able to see every facet of something. That's why you might find that where you used to be able to explain something really quick, and now you feel like it takes you a lot longer. I know my videos are a lot longer than they used to be. Unless I make a very conscious effort for them not to be. Because I'm looking at it from I can see a lot of different facets of it now. Yeah, I can see it from a lot of different dimensions. So when we live multidimensional, we're able to see things from a lot of different spaces. And depending on what dimension you're in, and depending on what dimension, you're always going to be in the rotating of the 3, people will call it, maybe I just call it that, but you're always going to be kind of working within 3 or 4 in your daily, in your body, 3, 4, and 5, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9, you're always going to be, and to me, the body's always kind of existing at the lowest one, because it is the it takes it the longest amount of time to reach the vibration of the next place, the next dimension, because of all the body rewrites it has to do, and because of all the processes it has to go through. So if you see something, and we have to look at, okay, where are we not finding our voice, and if we talked before about the crystal in our voice right here. So right above that notch, if you tap on that crystal, it'll assist in finding your voice, because as humans, we don't like to speak. Now, but people will hear that and go, oh no, they like to talk all the time. Like, they don't want to talk about anything real. Some people like to hear themselves talk, but none of it's coming from a pure place, and none of it's talking about anything tough. When I mean tough for the human to talk about. Look at when you really need to just talk about something, when you want to really set up a reality. How is that getting set up? Different examples of, how am I going to structure this reality? If you're looking at getting into a partnership with someone or doing a reality with someone, and that to me is a partnership with anybody. And when you're doing those things, can you find your voice? And if you do, what are you supporting with it? And that's kind of the second part of it. When you find your voice, what does that mean? Your voice is going to change. Even through ascension, your voice physically changes, depending on what phase someone's in. If they're in that really, the 5th dimension, just coming through to the 5th dimension, they have a very sing-songy, higher voice you're going to find. I know when I had that, it's a very sweet, sticky kind of voice. And then you get into a more kind of commanding voice when you go through kind of the 6th dimension, 7th, and you reach when you start activating your God particle, and you start recreating your realities and closing some realities out and starting new ones. And for a while, you might be in realities where there's really nobody there. And I've been in realities with very few people for a long time, because you're in a kind of dimension on your own until other people kind of show up in it. And you feel like you're kind of, there's no one here but me. And in a way that's kind of true for a while. It might be no one there but you, because you've kind of vibrated out of the other dimensions, and a lot of the old familiar faces aren't there anymore. But now we have to vibrate out of that. But by vibrating out of that, we have to remove our body from that. And that's the part a lot of people don't, they kind of skip over that part. or they want to skip over that part, like it's all just an etherical thing, or it's all just a thought thing, but you actually have to do things. And if you don't do anything, you're not going to move your body out of anything. So when we talk about finding our voice and what is our voice supporting, look at where you don't want to use your voice. And that's going to tell you what you're supporting. If you don't want to use your voice to support something else, if you let someone else's voice, I'm going to give an example here. I heard someone else give this example, and it was a great example, and I'm going to use it here because I have had this exact same thing happen to me numerous times. And I was still kind of trying to figure out how to work those realities, and it came into one very simple thing. And the simple thing was, well, just say it. Use your voice. Why does this even have to be a thing? You know, and it can kind of set up different realities that we might be going through, and it's more or less, why don't we want to talk about stuff? You know, why do we look at the judgment of what someone else would say to us? So if I want to start a reality, and when you come through in different parts of your ascension process, because you activate so much purity and you activate so much kindness, that can get taken the wrong way, you know, and I'm going to say the wrong way. And I'm going to say, let me change that. I don't like to use right or wrong. I used it here because it's kind of giving you, it's going to give you the example. It can be taken not at face value. It can be taken for something else, especially if you're dealing with, you know, a man and you know, where there could be a romantic attraction. When you're nice to people, people think you're being nice to them for a different reason. And when you're going through ascension, you might find this happens quite a bit, you know, because we do start to, God, I can't think of the word I'm trying to get to here. We start to just give off, you know, our frequency is of purity, our frequency is of kindness, and we are a frequency of home. And, you know, maybe not all the time, maybe not every day. When I'm in a clearing process, so I can be a very human frequency. You know, maybe not as human as I used to be, but when we're clearing stuff, you're not giving off that. You know, that's not what you're giving off. But when you're in certain places, and eventually you embody that, and you are giving that off all the time, it can be misconstrued. So then you start trying to set up realities, because maybe there's something you want to do with this person. You know, oh, maybe we write a book together, or we can do a podcast together, or there could be 100 different things you want to do. But you might feel it feels off. You know, you might feel like maybe there's romantic attraction on one side, and now how do I do that? How do I bridge that gap? This feels like a kind of mundane example, but I think it's one people will kind of resonate with, because I super resonated with this one, because I would get this one a lot. You know, there seemed to be an ulterior motive. And then it kind of would stop the reality, or it might stop you from being kind to people, or continue to be kind to people, because you can feel it's getting taken a different way, or it's getting misconstrued. I had this happen quite a bit to me when I would, not as much now, because now I can kind of use my voice to kind of set things in a certain place. But back then I didn't understand why is this so confusing? Just because people are nice. And you really have to look at that. And then you have to look at, okay, I can feel that if your body conscious is telling you something's off, then you have to look. You know, do I have feelings for this person? Do I feel like, am I picking up this other person has a different idea of this reality, that it's a romantic reality, where that's not where I am in this reality? What's going on? And you have to kind of pull that apart and look at it. You have to pull that apart and look at it and really decide, you know, yeah, where am I on this one? And there might have been a lot of realities you're very hesitant to go into, because you can kind of feel this, so we don't want to talk about it. Because one thing, you know, if we talk about it, we might feel like, oh, now we're going to be judged for, you know, thinking that everyone's in love with us, right? How do I bring that up? You know, how do I bring that up that, you know, and it is kind of, how do we bring that up? You know, can we take this reality from the beginning and say, okay, we're going to do this podcast together. How can this be framed where it doesn't feel like it's coming from the ego? We have to find our voice. We have to find our purest voice. We have to find our voice from higher consciousness, not our human voice. Everyone wants to think they found their voice, but all they did was found their human voice. They didn't find their voice, their inner voice, their higher consciousness voice, to where it sits there and really says, okay, let's look at this reality. You know, if I would say to this person, you know, this is not going to be a romantic relationship. This is just going to be a business relationship. We're going to make this very kind of cut and dry. That immediately comes off. That is not my voice. That's my human voice talking. And you can tell that's going to not be taken the right way. As soon as I say it, even when you say it, it feels like it won't be taken the right way. Now, if I pivot that and I try to say it a different way, and I can say, like, I'm really excited about this reality, or starting this reality, and building a friendship and a partnership in this type of work. It has a different feel to it. It has a different vibe to it. Can you go into more detail if it feels appropriate? And I have had to sometimes, and say that it's just going to be this, and it will not be any of these other things. But we have to find the way to say them. And when we talk about finding a voice, that's what that is. And there might be a lot of trial and error on finding our voice and why we don't want to say it. And even if there's romantic feelings on both sides, and sometimes you might feel that, sometimes you might feel that. And you're like, okay, but does that have to do with this reality? Is that something I really want to be involved in? Because it does get to a point in Ascension where that is not stuff you want to be involved in anymore. And there are a lot of different reasons for that. I'm not going to take this video to really go into those, but I've done a lot of videos on that. But I can in another one. But then you have to look at, can I put all that aside? There's been a couple of realities years ago where there was something on both sides, and we couldn't put it aside to do the reality. It was always in the way. And one, because neither one of us wanted to really talk about it. Neither one of us wanted to find our voice with that and say, like, can we put that aside and move past that? Because it wasn't aligned. And maybe that's the word I'm looking for there. It's not aligned. This is not aligned for us to go down that path. It's aligned. This is what's aligned. It's not highest aligned, but it's aligned to something, but this is not highest aligned. So do we go down this path? And when you start putting it in those, finding your words, finding your voice to say that and look at that and go, okay. Or the other way, some of realities I would find years ago I would avoid because I didn't want to have to deal with it. Because there's also a place that, okay, just because one person wants a romantic relationship, would I compromise and do that, even though that's not how I see this reality going? So there's a lot of stuff that goes into these things, and a lot of stuff that when we start to build realities, we really do have to find our voice. We can't be judging ourselves first and worrying about how it's going to be taken. When we find our voice to say it, and it's your highest voice, say it out loud. Say it out loud in the mirror and feel how it feels when you say certain words. Is that my highest voice? What is my voice supporting? Is it supporting all of the stuff that's keeping everyone at odds? Is it unity, or is it another distortion? For a while, we might not know. For a while, there might just be words you can't say anymore. That happened for me a lot. Words I couldn't say anymore. Luckily, curse words I never had a problem with. I can still say. A lot of that, though, is also coming in your power. So a lot of people think that's not appropriate in different, Ascension videos. But for me, it's more for effect than it is for disrespect. And you'll start to kind of feel the difference in that too. When you choose certain words to say, and you know why you're using those words. You're not using those words for shock value. You're using those words for the strength of that word in that moment to get a point across. You're not using that word to offend anyone. It's not a disrespectful thing. So I want to keep this one a little bit shorter. I'm going to try, because I feel like this is one I want to put on a couple more platforms that have time limitations. Because this is a big one. Finding your voice. Look at what you don't want to talk about. Humans don't want to talk about shit, okay? So, trust me. Look at the realities you've avoided. Look at how things can get misconstrued, and how you might have maybe stopped certain things you were doing because you didn't want it to get misconstrued, because you didn't want to deal with the reality and align it back to what it was, and not where it was kind of skewing off to. So, okay. Keep practicing the art of intuition.